Grace Sterling stepped onto the glossy marble floor of the Peninsula Resort, the soft beige of her simple dress in stark contrast to the resort's glittering chandeliers and lavish interior. With a graceful flick of her hand, she tucked a loose strand of brown hair behind her ear, her eyes quietly scanning the guests milling about. Draped in designer labels and dripping with jewels, she had just arrived from a 30-minute drive after reviewing donations for her foundation's charity auction at a nearby boutique. Without stopping to change, Grace had come straight to the resort to oversee final preparations for that evening's gala. She still liked to handle the details herself, just as she had when she organized fundraisers in her grandmother's basement years ago. "I'm here to check on tonight's arrangements," she told the receptionist, who paused, her polite smile faltering as she took in Grace's unassuming look. "Are you here working for one of our guests?" the receptionist asked in a lowered voice. Grace gave her a soft smile. "No, I'll be attending the Sterling Foundation Gala. The reservation should be under Sterling." The receptionist tapped quickly at her keyboard, her brow furrowing. "I don't see your name listed. Are you part of the foundation staff?" "I'm actually the founder," Grace replied calmly. "My husband William should have called ahead. He'll be arriving by yacht." Just then, a sharply dressed man in an expensive suit approached, having overheard. His gold name tag gleamed as he introduced himself. "Bernard Phillips, General Manager. Is there an issue here?" he asked, his smile tight and insincere. The receptionist leaned in, whispering something. Bernard's brows arched as he looked Grace up and down. "Ma'am, this is a private resort. The Sterling Foundation Gala is a highly exclusive event. Perhaps there's been some confusion?" "There's no confusion," Grace said steadily. "I'm Grace Sterling. My husband and I—" Bernard cut her off with a chuckle. "Mrs. Sterling is a well-known philanthropist. She wouldn't show up alone, or dressed like that." He gestured toward her outfit dismissively. "I have ID," Grace offered, reaching into her purse. Bernard waved her off. "Please. Anyone can print a fake ID these days." Without another word, 2 security guards appeared at Bernard's silent signal. Other guests had started to notice the scene, whispering behind manicured hands. "Let's not make this difficult," Bernard continued. "We can't have anyone just walking in claiming to be someone important." Grace noticed a woman nearby subtly recording the encounter on her phone. "Perfect. Word would spread." "I understand," she said, voice calm. "But may I at least use your restroom before I leave?" Bernard hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Make it quick." As Grace walked away, she overheard him mutter to the guards, "Make sure she actually leaves. These gold digger types are persistent." Inside the elegant restroom, Grace locked herself in a stall and pulled out her phone. She sent a quick message to Diane Williams, her executive assistant. "Code Cinderella, Peninsula Resort, 2 hours." The reply came within seconds. "Understood, initiating protocol." She smiled, slipping the phone back into her bag. She and William had created this code after the 3rd time someone dismissed her for not looking the part. Grace never fought back with her name or status. She let the situation unfold. The lesson always landed harder that way. When she stepped back into the lobby, the security guards were waiting. "Miss, whatever your name is," the taller one said. "Mr. Phillips asked us to escort you out." "Of course," Grace said smoothly. They walked through the grand lobby under the watchful eyes of amused guests. Bernard stepped out to watch her exit, clearly pleased. "Maybe next time you'll book a reservation under your real name," he called after her. "We only host the Sterling Gala because Mr. Sterling is a valued patron. His wife, by the way, is known for her impeccable taste, something not everyone has." There were scattered, smug chuckles. Grace kept her chin lifted. "I'll be sure to tell my husband about your hospitality." Bernard smirked. "I'm sure he'll be very impressed with your imagination, if he exists." At the door, one of the guards gestured toward the taxi line. "Want us to call a cab?" he asked, voice dripping with condescension. "No need," Grace replied. "I'll manage." The heavy doors closed behind her with a soft, expensive-sounding thud. She walked slowly down the curved driveway, feeling the staff's eyes on her back. Once at the street, she turned left, heading along the oceanfront promenade that bordered the resort. She found a quiet cafe with a view of the harbor and ordered an iced tea. Perfect vantage point. Checking her watch, a simple, elegant timepiece that once belonged to her father, she calculated the timing, 1 hour and 40 minutes to go. Her phone buzzed. A message from Diane. William is furious. ETA, 100 minutes, package arriving in 20. Grace took a sip of her drink, watching gulls circling above the water. She wasn't upset. She'd endured far worse judgment before meeting William. She'd worked multiple jobs to put herself through school, been overlooked, underestimated, written off. William had once offered to ensure everyone knew who she was to avoid scenes like this, but she'd declined. Those who judge a book by its cover, she told him, deserve the surprise when they discover what's inside. Exactly 19 minutes later, an elegant black car pulled up in front of the cafe. A driver in a crisp uniform stepped out, scanning the patio. Mrs. Sterling? She asked, approaching. Yes, Maria. Thank you for coming so quickly. The driver set a garment bag and small suitcase by Grace's chair. Miss Diane said you needed these urgently. Is everything all right? Just a small misunderstanding that'll sort itself out soon, Grace replied with a knowing smile. Would you like anything to drink? No, thank you, ma'am. I should get back. Mr. Sterling was very determined when he called. Grace nodded. William's fierce reputation in business circles was well known, though never directed at her or their staff. I'll see you soon, she said. Once Maria departed, Grace carried the items to the cafe restroom. 15 minutes later, she emerged, transformed. Gone was the plain dress. In its place, a cream designer ensemble. Her hair, once tied back, now flowed in soft waves. A delicate diamond necklace, her first anniversary gift from William, rested at her collarbone. She paid the bill with a generous tip and strolled back toward the promenade. This time, people's eyes followed her with admiration, not dismissal. A nod here, a double take there. The transformation, it seemed, had changed everything. Checking the time, she saw there was just over an hour before William's arrival. She dialed a number. Hello, Carter. It's Grace Sterling. I'm well, thank you. I need a small favor regarding tonight's gala. Carter Jackson, the resort's owner and a close friend of William's, was currently overseas. Day-to-day operations were left to managers like Bernard. Grace explained the situation succinctly, careful to emphasize she didn't want Bernard fired. Just educated. Are you sure? Carter asked, chuckling. I could have him packing within the hour. That won't be necessary. William, and I have something more instructional in mind. You two always did have a flair for the dramatic. Consider it done. I'll call Bernard myself, but I won't mention you. Perfect, thank you, Carter. Grace hung up and resumed walking, following the shoreline path that led to the resort's private beach. From there, she'd have a clear view of the harbor, where the Odyssey, William's 300-foot luxury yacht, would soon make its entrance. Her phone buzzed again. A message from William. Almost there. Are you okay? She smiled, replying, Never better. Bernard has no idea what's coming. She could practically hear William's grin as his response came through. Good. The Odyssey is ready for a grand entrance. Love you. Grace slipped her phone away and continued her leisurely stroll, every step bringing her closer to the moment of truth. Back at the resort, Bernard Phillips was enjoying a triumphant afternoon. After successfully removing the imposter who dared pretend to be Grace Sterling, he had personally inspected the ballroom. Everything needed to be perfect for the real Mr. and Mrs. Sterling. Then the receptionist's voice interrupted. Mr. Phillips, call on line 1. It's Mr. Jackson. Bernard straightened. Carter Jackson rarely called the resort directly. I'll take it in my office, he said, briskly walking away. Once seated at his desk, he picked up the line. Mr. Jackson, what a pleasant surprise. Bernard, Carter said, his voice unusually firm. I've just been informed that William Sterling's yacht, the Odyssey, will be docking at our marina within the hour. I need you to personally make sure everything's ready. Bernard swelled with pride. Of course, sir, we're fully prepared for the gala. This is different, Carter interrupted. He's arriving early, and he's not happy. Something about a misunderstanding at the resort today. Bernard's stomach sank. A misunderstanding? He asked carefully. He didn't give details, just mentioned something about his wife. Bernard's pulse quickened. The woman he'd thrown out. Could she have been telling the truth? There was a woman earlier who claimed to be Mrs. Sterling, Bernard admitted. But she didn't look anything like the photos we have. She was dressed, very simply. A long silence stretched across the line. Bernard, Carter said. At last, have you ever met Grace Sterling in person? Well, no. But the photo in our system is likely outdated or from a rare public event. Grace values her privacy. That's part of why they chose our resort. Bernard wiped sweat from his brow. Listen carefully, Carter continued. William Sterling's yacht is worth more than this entire resort, and it's bringing an extremely displeased billionaire to your front door. When Bernard hung up, his hands were shaking. Bernard raced to his office, heart pounding, and pulled up his browser, frantically searching for photos of William Sterling. Dozens of results filled the screen. Images of the billionaire at business summits, black tie galas, and ribbon-cutting ceremonies. But just as Carter had said, pictures of Grace Sterling were rare. In the few that surfaced, she appeared elegant but elusive, often turning slightly away from the camera or positioned behind others. Yet even partially obscured, there was something unmistakable about her. Bernard stared harder. The woman from earlier today, the one he'd dismissed, had similar features. Her simplicity had masked her elegance. Oh God, he muttered as realization hit. He buzzed the front desk. Get me everything you can on William Sterling's yacht, now. Within minutes he was staring at a dossier on the Odyssey, the billionaire's custom-built superyacht. Sleek, vast, and unmistakably luxurious, the 300-foot vessel boasted multiple decks, a helipad, opulent interiors, and space for 24 guests and 28 crew. According to live tracking data, the yacht was approaching their marina. Panic surged. Bernard called an emergency staff meeting in the lobby. Listen carefully, he said, voice clipped. We may have made a serious mistake. The woman removed from the resort earlier today, she might have been Grace Sterling. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the group. William Sterling's yacht will dock within the hour, Bernard continued. We need to prepare now. Sarah, contact the marina and confirm docking arrangements. Michael, red carpet. Jennifer, champagne at the dock. Let's move. As the team scattered into action, Bernard stepped outside, squinting into the horizon. There, just a glimmer at first, then a growing silhouette. The Odyssey was cutting through the waves with majestic ease, its pristine white hull gleaming in the sunlight. His phone rang. It was the marina manager. Mr. Phillips, you'd better get down here. The Odyssey has requested immediate docking. ETA. 30 minutes. Bernard tightened his tie and took a steadying breath. Understood. I'm on my way. He had one chance, to contain the fallout, if he could find Grace before William did. But if not, he'd have to face the billionaire himself and answer for what he'd done. The yacht's arrival drew a crowd. Resort guests, curious locals, and staff gathered to watch the spectacle unfold. Cameras flashed, phones recorded. Even the casual observer could tell this was no ordinary boat. It was a floating kingdom. Bernard stood stiffly at the dock's edge. A red carpet had been hastily rolled out. Champagne bottles rested in ice. Flower arrangements flanked the walkway. Every available staff member had been summoned. He silently tallied the value of the yacht, north of $150 million, enough to buy the entire resort several times over. The gangway extended. Then he saw him. William Sterling, tall and composed, appeared at the top of the stairs. His silver blonde hair was perfectly styled. He wore a navy suit that whispered wealth and power. His posture, his stride, everything about him radiated quiet authority. Bernard stepped forward, smiling nervously, hand outstretched. "Mr. Sterling, welcome to the Peninsula. I'm Bernard Phillips, General Manager. It's an honor to—" But William walked right past him without a word, scanning the crowd. Bernard hustled to keep up. "Mr. Sterling, about earlier today, there's been a misunderstanding." William stopped, slowly turning to face him. His voice was cool, each word precise. "A misunderstanding?" he said. "Is that what you call humiliating my wife and having her escorted off the property?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests, recognizing Grace from earlier, began whispering, realizing who she really was. I can explain," Bernard stammered. "I'm sure you can," William replied icily. He turned toward the yacht and raised his hand. A hush fell over the crowd as a new figure emerged. At the top of the gangway stood Grace Sterling, but not the woman they remembered from hours earlier. Gone was the beige dress. Now she wore an elegant cream designer ensemble that shimmered in the sun. Diamonds adorned her neck and wrists. Her hair framed her face in perfect waves. She descended slowly, each step reclaiming the dignity Bernard had tried to strip away. The same guests who had laughed or sneered earlier now stepped aside, their expressions a mix of awe and shame. William extended a hand. Grace took it with a serene smile. Together, they turned to face Bernard, whose complexion had gone ghostly pale. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Sterling," Bernard stammered. I can't express—" Grace lifted a hand, silencing him. "Mr. Phillips," she said clearly, her voice calm and commanding, "we have a gala to prepare for. Shall we continue this conversation inside?" She didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult him. She didn't need to. Her poise spoke louder than any outburst could. The crowd instinctively parted, creating a respectful path. Some lowered their heads, embarrassed for their earlier assumptions. Bernard, with no choice, followed behind the couple, his once proud stride now uncertain. Inside the VIP lounge, Bernard stood alone before William and Grace. The confidence he had earlier was gone. "Mr. and Mrs. Sterling," he began, "I deeply regret how Mrs. Sterling was treated today. There's no excuse for it." William's expression was unreadable. Grace, however, regarded Bernard steadily. "You know, Mr. Phillips," she said, "I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My father was a mechanic. My mother waited tables. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college." Bernard blinked, unsure where she was going. "I founded the Sterling Foundation before I met William with just $5,000 I'd saved. Today we raise millions for education programs helping kids who, like me, may be judged by how they look rather than who they are." The message landed hard. Bernard lowered his gaze. "I don't want you fired," Grace continued to his surprise. "That would be too easy." William arched an eyebrow, knowing what was coming. "Our foundation is launching a mentorship initiative. We need successful professionals, especially in hospitality, to mentor students from underprivileged backgrounds. You'll commit to 1 year, no shortcuts." Bernard nodded quickly. "Of course, Mrs. Sterling, anything." "Good," she said. "Also, tonight's gala will include a new pledge, a scholarship fund for hospitality students in need. The Peninsula will fund the first year." He understood immediately. This wasn't a suggestion. "I'll speak with our finance department." "Right away," he said. Grace stood. "Good. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a gala to prepare." As Bernard left the lounge, shoulders slumped, William took Grace's hand. "Handled perfectly," he murmured. Grace smiled. "Let's hope he learned something." William looked at her with pride. "About not judging a book by its cover?" Grace nodded. "About humanity." Then she added more softly, "Which is ultimately worth more than any yacht. Because in a world where appearances and possessions often dictate perception, true wealth lies in dignity, in character, in how we treat others." Grace Sterling had reminded them all of that, without ever raising her voice. Have you ever been underestimated because of your appearance? Share your story in the comments below. If this tale of elegance, justice, and quiet strength inspired you, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know below.